Ubuntu, has its roots in African philosophy. It is based on the recognition that we are only people because of other people. A better understanding of this is when we watch the evening news, if you do. I don't, but if you do. And you bear witness to things like 9/11 and the Fort Mac fires of this summer. The common theme when tragedy strikes: community, love, sharing, and caring. We are because you are. But I digress. I'm here to talk about death and grief. The good news, the same themes apply, as long as you lean into death. And when I say lean in, what I mean is to allow death to strengthen our connection rather than create more separation. What I know for sure, I'm happy to say I know one thing for sure in this life. I know that all my experiences with death, and there are many, have prepared me to educate others in understanding you can't heal it if you don't feel it in mending a broken heart. And notice I didn't say fix, I said mend. My first experience with death came when I was 24, and I lost my brother suddenly at 25 in a car accident. But I was lucky enough to have had closure with him prior to his death. We were close. I said I love you on our last phone call, which was something actually unfamiliar to our relationship, even though we were close. His girlfriend at the time, who was already a good friend of mine, helped me learn intuitively the skill of asking questions to draw out her pain. We talked a lot every day for at least a couple of years, and I would always say, well, what is it right now that's making you cry? And she would share. Fast forward 20 years, and this same girlfriend, who's like a sister to me to this day, gave me the precious gift of being involved in the home births of her children, which taught me a very valuable lesson around death, and that is the same love that is present at birth is also present at death, if you lean into it. The love that makes you wish you could stop the earth from spinning, that something miraculous just happened, and people shouldn't be out buying milk at 7-Eleven at 5 o'clock in the morning or standing in a line at Starbucks. That's the kind of love I'm talking about. My biggest takeaway from my brother's funeral and the week leading up to the funeral is the love that was present at my dad's house, with the revolving door of friends coming to visit, sitting around the living room drinking, laughing, crying during our shared experiences about John. Again, community, love, sharing, and caring. Another example of one of my many experiences with death came when a partner of mine, I was together with him in my late 20s and my early 30s, and we were together for about 7 years, and the grief is a bit twofold. That relationship ended abruptly. There was no closure. I was cut off from all forms of communication, and he went back to his country. This was very shocking to me, and it was like a death, as if our life together hadn't happened. I had no access to him. A First Nations elder educated me to leaning into all my feelings, experiencing them, knowing that they would pass. But I got over the pain and how I knew my heart was mended, as some people say, but when do you know? How can you tell? It was a couple years ago when I got a call from somebody I didn't know. He wanted me to know that this ex-partner of mine from a decade ago had died. But worse than that, he committed suicide. He thought that I would want to know, which of course I did. He suffered from depression and used his addiction of alcohol to numb his pain. The knowingness of the work I had done to mend my heart came when his family traveled to Tofino to spread some of his ashes. During our time together, I had no residue in my heart or my soul for this once very valued person in my life. and I had no idea which way that visit was going to go, but this is the healing. I was very content with all the feelings in my body. It truly was, in my mind, a tangible miracle for when you lean in and do the work. And that's what brings me to the stage today. I feel so strongly that much of humanity's suffering is directly related to not leaning into death or the grief that follows. Stay with me, it gets good. So it will come as no surprise to you all that we live in a death-phobic society. Stephen Jenkinson, who was the director of palliative care for 5 years at Mount Sinai Hospital in Toronto, and continues to redefine what it means to live and die well through many different forms, has been quoted as saying, "The death culture we are a product of is fundamentally, irretrievably, irredeemably, and for the foreseeable future, entirely a death-phobic society." Ponder that while I take a sip of water. We are a very long way away from accepting death into our culture. How do we deny it? Obvious things like, I don't know, Botox injections. We don't even want to look our age, let alone be our age. The language that we use, I rarely say to anybody, I have a dead brother. People don't like that word dead, but I do have a dead brother. And this one's my favorite. When we know that somebody's in pain, even perhaps a death or just, just a relationship breakup or what have you, we sit at home, we pull out our credit card, we call a floral shop, and we order a bouquet to that address. And we don't even leave the comfort of our own home. Utter denial and discomfort with death. So after death, then what? Grief and pain avoidance. Quite simply, when we avoid, numb, or silence our pain, we are leaning away from death, and that is without exception. Every day I come across examples of this, so leading up to the talk I'm thinking, oh, that's a good one, oh, that's a good one. But every day it just got better and better, until I came across one from a fellow that I follow on Instagram, and his name is Joshua Coombs, and he gives free haircuts. He's a hairdresser in London, and he gives free haircuts to the homeless. And then he offers a little small bio in his account of this person. And one fellow he talked of that lived in the streets for 7 years and is currently battling a heroin addiction that was kicked off, due to the death of a loved one. And I can guarantee you, without having ever had a heroin addiction, that dealing with your grief is 100% better than becoming addicted to heroin and living in the streets for 7 years. One larger problem with denying our grief, and to be honest, this is the saddest part of the equation for me, was written eloquently by famed author Marianne Williamson in her book, Tears to Triumph, where she writes, "The negative consequence of not being sensitive to our own pain makes us less sensitive to the pain of others, and that can never be a good thing." And in short, she goes on to say, suffering gives you X-ray vision into other people's suffering. The longer we spend looking away from our pain, the less capacity we have to empathize with another. This only validates Stephen Jenkinson's views about being a long way away from an inclusive, collaborative, community-based death culture. What I ask of you as a death coach is to help me help you understand the role, a project manager of sorts, for the tsunami of emotions and tasks a family has to deal with when death strikes. Let my role as a death doula help everyone make dying a more meaningful and loving experience. The dying, the caregivers, the network of family members, and even our beloved pets. Maybe most importantly, our beloved pets. But I'm a dog lover. If this work resonates with you, Please invite me into your home for one-on-one work with your family, workshops, and speaking engagements to help educate the masses on how to do death better, because there's nowhere to go but up, I promise you. And in closing, I would like to close by sharing a philosophy of beauty in the Japanese culture. When the Japanese men broke in objects, they aggrandized the damage by filling the cracks with gold. They believe that when something is damaged and has a history, it becomes more beautiful. And to end with a quote from Rupi Kaur, "The world gives you so much pain, and here you are making gold of it. There is nothing more pure than that." So let's fill our hearts with gold and heal the world one death at a time. Thank you.